KKHT wants you to meet three of the classiest guys in real estate.
I am Chris Kelso, the maestro of mortgage.
I am Rob Cook, the godfather of real estate.
And I'm Joe Orsack, the king of credit swing. And together, we're the Real Estate Rat Pack. Much like us, real estate right now is smoking hot. So whether it's buying, selling, or owning, you need to check out the Real Estate Rat Pack.
They're here to take your calls and answer your questions live. Call now, 1-800-808-5548. And now, the Real Estate Rat Pack.
And
Good morning.
back on air. How's everyone doing this morning?
We're doing great. Welcome back, Chris. We
Matt,
missed you last week.
Well, I appreciate. You know what was really neat is I was able. I will tell the world I was in Disney World. I was spending some hard-earned money and a lot more than I had anticipated. And let me tell you, it was great listening to the show on air in Disney in the park and have everybody come and say, "What are you doing? What are you listening to? What's so important?"
So tell us, is there an app for that?
There is an app for that, actually. It's called TuneIn Radio. Go to TuneIn Radio if you need to. Right on any one of your phones, you can listen to it. You just type in 100.7 FM, and it will pop right up, and you can listen to it.
That's cool.
Yeah. We have a pretty exciting show today.
We have a fantastic show.
And I'm really excited about our guests, and it's all going to be about energy. And getting into the June, July, August, and, it can get a little toasty in Houston, Texas, and so I thought, you know what, this is a great subject to have. And we have Arcadio Padilla from Reliant Energy is here. Welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
And also Jim Waller with Solaris Homes. Jim, welcome.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure being here.
And Chris Frederking with MHI.
Good morning, and clearly you do know all my family because you can actually pronounce my last name.
Yes, that's right. there is an R in there. It's Frederking, not Federking.
Well done, sir.
Yeah, thank you. So we're going to start with Arcadio, and one of the things that we get into this time of year is like, my bill goes up threefold. And so I want to start having a conversation about how can we stop that?
I want it to stop. Make it stop, man.
Unfortunately, the city we live in, you're never going to make it stop. And the only option is to somehow control the weather and make sure that it's nice and mild instead of the usual 140 degrees that it feels like out there.
Well, short of that, let's first talk about one of the things that people can do that's not going to cost them anything. And before the show, we were talking about that you have a service that you come out and audit the house.
Absolutely. One of the services that Reliant has for their customers is there's a team of consultants that they make available for their customers in Houston and in Dallas, where they will actually come out to your home, do an evaluation so that they can see if your home is efficient, and if it's not efficient, to see what sort of things you can do to improve that efficiency.
I didn't know that. That's actually a pretty cool service.
And what does that service cost?
It is absolutely free to Reliant customers.
That is absolutely my favorite price, is free. So
free 99.
And just real quickly, who would they contact at Reliant to do that?
They could call 1-855-887-2190. Or they can call locally 713-488-8610.
Yeah, and we're going to ask for those numbers again later on, because I think that's a great service, and I was not even aware that they had a free service. But, there's some cities like Austin, they're starting to do audits as part of their inspections and things like that.
Right, it's required before the sale of a home.
And they want to be carbon neutral. Thinking they announced it probably 5 years ago, so I think they got 10 years they plan on being carbon neutral, and I'm
that's an ambitious goal.
That's ambitious. I'm not even sure what carbon neutral means, but anyway, let's talk about that. Reliant has probably some programs now that when come in the summer months that could probably help a lot of consumers out there.
Well, I think chief among those is, again, the home energy consultation. It's a free service. I would absolutely encourage Reliant customers to take advantage of that. And I think that's one of the mistakes that people make. We don't know enough about how our home works and how it consumes energy to use it wisely. I think most folks don't even know what a kilowatt hour is.
What would you say, from your perspective, with that statement? What would you say as far as education? We're big on education on the show, and we're silly and we have a good time up here, but we're really focused on giving good content, good information to our listeners, and that type of thing. What would you say is a good place to start for them in educating themselves about how energy is consumed, used in the home, that type of thing? Is there anything?
Absolutely. The easiest way to do this is the first thing I would do is to look at my bill. I mean, your bill is, you get a charge in dollars, and I think that's what everybody focuses on. I think what you should look at is how much energy the home is consuming And that's noted in your bill in kilowatt hours. That's basically gas mileage for your house. And I think too many people don't take a look at that. All they look at is the price and assume, oh, well, I'm getting charged too much or my rate is too high. And what they'll do is they'll hop from provider to try to find a better rate. And they're disguising the problem. Mm-hmm. The problem won't go away just because you do something like that. It'll cloud it for a little while, but the problem is your home is consuming too much energy. We need to do something about it.
What are the biggest culprits in energy, Robin?
Oh, number one in Houston during the summer, the months you mentioned, June, July, August, and we can sneak in September and October probably, is air conditioning. For the typical customer, you can expect their home to consume 60 to 70% of their total electricity usage, AC.
Wow. And so what are some things that you recommend doing? Let's say we're in April or May, and we're about to come into the hot months, and we know it's coming. So
every year.
And every year. It's on my calendar. What do you recommend that people do in there? Because you're mentioning something about that people don't understand maybe how the AC works.
Absolutely, and I think it's something that out of sight, out of mind, you neglect it. I think that's number one. Let's make sure that you have your air conditioning equipment tuned, serviced, just like your car. Your car, no one would ever think, well, my car is a year old, it doesn't require an oil change. Or my car is a couple of years old, why would I change the oil? You'd be amazed at how many customers will tell you, oh, my air conditioning equipment's 3, 4, 5 years old. I've never had it serviced because it's pretty new.
Oh, my. Well, and I know that Joe was talking about his house was built in 1991, but your air conditioner is only like 6 or 7 years old. But
yes.
But you feel like you're not maximizing your usage of air conditioning.
Oh, wow, yeah. Well, let me say, first of all, that's a great point on the maintenance aspect. I have a company, won't mention them on air because they are not sponsors. I told them they should be a sponsor. Anyway, that comes out quarterly and does a maintenance on all the equipment in the house and everything else. And they make recommendations on items that I need to look at and that type of thing. And that has helped a lot. But yeah, at the end of the day, I've got a house that's built in 91, single pane windows. I think a good solid inch gap under every door is a mandatory. I
hope that's not the outside door.
Yeah, no, I'm kidding. But, it's just, I know it's not energy efficient at all. I mean, if there's a single aspect of the house that's energy efficient, I'd be amazed. But I just don't know where to start. I started looking at attic fans and a bunch of different things, just trying to figure out what's the best opportunity to save some money.
I think the first thing that I would look at for any home is to make sure that my HVAC equipment is in good condition. I mean, that's number one. After that, I would probably look at my air delivery system, the ductwork, make sure that's in good condition. Let's assume that your home, we know that your home was built in 1991. Mm-hmm. Your equipment, your air conditioning equipment's only 6 years old. I would say that it's probably fair to assume that your ductwork is probably the original.
Yeah.
Probably they didn't swap it out when you swapped out the equipment.
Correct.
So you've got relatively new, efficient equipment delivering air through ductwork that might be inefficient. It could be improperly sealed. I mean, you're expecting that this ductwork that's now 22 years old to still be in good condition and still be well sealed. Boy, that's a tough thing.
Sure.
And in the ductwork, it's a good comment you made there. Ductwork 20 years ago versus what you're doing today. I mean, MHI and Solaris can talk about this. A lot different. I mean, materials have a tendency to degradation over a period of time, and so a lot of times looking at the little things like that make a huge difference in air delivery and efficiency, which ultimately lead to spending less money on the old electricity bill.
Well, and I've seen some things where people store things in their attic, and they'll push it up against a duct or something like that. The ducts in most houses are flexible, and I've seen them pinched, dropped, separated.
Absolutely. That's front and center. You see that all the time. The attic it's a Texas basement. That's all it is.
And it's hot up there.
It's hot up there, and you put all your goodies up there, and you don't care where you lay it, so you'll drop it on top of insulation, ruining the effectiveness of the insulative qualities of that material. And dropping it on ductwork, yeah.
Well, we use a lot magical material here in Texas, and I think many parts of the United States is called duct tape.
Yes.
You can't fix it with duct tape; it's broke.
That's right.
Really,
If it's stuck and you want it unstuck, WD-40. And if it's unstuck and you want it stuck, duct tape.
Duct tape. That's the redneck.
So now we know what's in these guys' toolbox.
That's right. That's it. Two things.
Duct tape.
That's all you need. But what happens is, even though that's pretty good material and it's magic, over the years it does come undone and it shrinks.
And it doesn't even
heresy.
I know.
It doesn't even take years. I mean, the attic environment is so harsh. Mm-hmm. The typical temperature in the attic is 40 degrees hotter than the air temperature outside.
Jeez.
So if it's 110 degrees on a typical July summer day, it's 145 degrees in that attic.
Well, that's a great segue into, okay, we've got all this air and it's trapped, and I know a lot of people have turbines, and of course there's ridge vents. Is there anything else that can help move that hot air away from the house?
I think one of the big issues that I see is that there's soffit vents all along the out perimeter of the home, and most of the time these are clogged. Nobody clears them.
I want to ask a question because I'm saving a lot of these for the builders that I have on what knowledge I can get out of. But
we're not letting anyone go, so we can ask questions at any time.
Absolutely. I want to.
We lock that door.
I want to talk about from energy perspective with Reliant. This is obviously on a lot of folks' mind. The green energy, what Reliant's doing on that front, what's the move, all that type of thing. Where's energy headed from a provider standpoint?
Well, I think being efficient is the easiest, the most objective way to be green. I think if you misuse what resources you have available today, the whole green thing is really just a waste.
This is America. We want you to do it for us. I want to go on consuming massive amounts of stuff with no concern. Just make it cheaper.
Well, and then, and Reliant, obviously being part of NRG, also owns, another green provider, which is mainly wind. We talked about that during one of the breaks. So, I mean, I can tell you I've switched multiple companies over the years. I am a Reliant customer right now. And I'll tell you, they have some really good products. I can attest from this. I pay a really good price right now. I use Nest as one of their technologies they have out there, which you can control remotely. It's really neat. I've got 2 units. I've got an upstairs and a downstairs unit, and it's really neat to be able to get logged in and be able to utilize some of the tools and technologies that Reliant is putting out there right now to try to allow clients like myself to really minimize their costs on a monthly basis of what we're spending. Because let me tell you, when I was getting in the summer months a couple of years ago and spending $400 and $500 and $600, it got to be a bit nuts, and I have reduced that down quite a bit by just managing the efficiency and how I'm using my air a lot better. We are up against some time right now. We got to take a break here pretty soon, don't we?
Yep.
So all those listening, you are listening to the Real Estate Rat Pack Show. We want to hear from you. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back.
Out of sight, when that shark bite.
Welcome back to the Real Estate Rat Pack Radio Show with Chris, Joe, and Rob. The crew is taking your calls, so dial in at 1-800-808-5548.
Welcome back to the show. I love when I start my warm-up and then he points at me. I'm like, John!
You were halfway through the
yeah, welcome back to the show.
Follow the producer.
Yes. We have an awesome show happening today. It's a subject that touches everybody, and we are discussing energy. Energy and real estate in Houston, which this is like the energy capital of the United States. So it's a fun subject, and my bill goes up every year at this time. Obviously, I'm interested.
Oh, I would agree.
You're going to get an audit now, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
And let me tell all of our listeners, if you have questions about energy efficiency, give us a call. We are live, 800-808-5548. We want to hear from you. You can call in, ask all of our guests a question live. It's great stuff to do.
Well, we've got some awesome guests in. Arcadio just finished talking. He's still here in the studio from Reliant. So, folks out there, if you got questions about energy and what's happening there, you want to talk to an expert, Reliant's in the studio. We're definitely taking y'all's calls. And we've got another guy here that's going to share some knowledge with us from a major builder here in town. Why don't you introduce yourself?
My name is Chris Frederking. I'm with McGuire Home Builders. And just so everybody knows who McGuire Home Builders is, we own Plantation Homes, Coventry Homes, Wilshire Homes, and Carmel Builders. Those are our brand names. You mentioned this time of year your electric bill going up.
Skyrockets.
Yes, absolutely. And
makes like a shuttle.
Well, we are in Houston. This, as a builder of very energy efficient homes, is actually when I was selling one of my favorite times of year. A lot of people are complaining about electric bills being high this time of year, and I always got calls from homeowners that were actually ecstatic about how low their electricity bills were still this time of year, while many of their neighbors were complaining about high electric bills. One of the things we do as an energy-efficient builder, we are an Environments for Living Platinum-level builder, which allows us to actually guarantee the heating and cooling costs on our home per month. And as Arcadio said, heating and cooling is about 60% of your total electric bill. We have homes, just to give an example, a 3,000 square foot one-story home that we actually have a guaranteed heating and cooling cost of $67 a month.
Good night.
That is amazing.
It is.
67.
With my windows open in the middle of winter, I don't know that I've seen a $67 bill.
So it is something that that you can do something about other than changing the weather. When we find the technology to do that, we will work on that side too.
We have the technology.
You know, and energy efficiency.
And the NSA is listening, so I won't talk about it.
The thing I said about our harsh summers is that's how we keep the weak ones out. If they can't survive
That's
our
right.
summers, you know.
I like that.
If it was nice around here, we'd have 20 million people
That's
in
right.
the metro area.
You know, we have like the best bang for the buck real estate in the United States, if you ask me. I mean, I went to Hawaii and stayed with some friends out there one time. There was 3 families living in an 1,100 square foot house. And they were each paying like $800 a piece. I mean, it was just an insane amount of money, and I didn't even want to talk about the house I was staying in. It's like a mansion, you know, compared to what they've got. So we have amazing home prices. Rob's right. If the temperature was nice, if it was like California, we'd be paying 5 times the price for our houses. So filters out the weenies. I like it.
But you know, Chris, I want to ask you a question. You know, we're talking about energy. Energy efficiency also goes beyond just what you're paying on a monthly energy cost. Talk a little bit about how you build your homes. Talk a little bit about some of the energy efficiencies that you do in your homes as far as, you know, standard double pane windows, et cetera out there.
Sure, and the windows are a big part of it. That is one of the main sources of heat intrusion into your home. We use a double pane window, obviously. A big thing that a lot of builders overlook in trying to be that lower price per square foot, they use aluminum windows instead of the more expensive vinyl windows. If you think about trying to cook an egg, are you going to cook it on a piece of metal? You're going to cook it on a piece of vinyl. You're not going to cook it on the vinyl because it's not going to transmit as much heat. So if you look around your home and think about how many window frames and how much metal that is in those aluminum windows, that's transferring a ton of heat into your home. So we use a vinyl window frame so it doesn't transfer as much heat into the home. So that's one of the big points. The other big point of heat intrusion is through the attic, obviously. Arcadio talked about how hot your attic is. One of the things that we do that most builders do these days is including Tech Shield standard on their homes. That keeps the temperature of the attic space down, which means that air that's being transferred through those ducts, even once they are 21 years old, they're going through a cooler space. One of the best analogies I've heard of that is if you think about sticking a tube through your oven and you're trying to run cool air through there, well, the cooler that oven is, the cooler that air is going to be coming out the other side.
That's a good analogy. Yep. That makes sense.
So anything you can do to keep that temperature down in the attic is going to help you.
You know, and I love your reference to cooking because let me tell you, Chris is a phenomenal cook. So I you know, I'm sitting here right now and I'm listening.
You're thinking about my ribs, aren't you?
Yeah, and I'm thinking about the ribs. And I'm thinking about all the fishing you do and how that fish looks really good that you cook.
You see where our minds are.
Yes.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Never
Always
far
on
from food. Yeah. This is all about real estate and food.
Right.
Well, if we keep your electric bills low enough, you can afford to buy a lot more ribs and a lot more fish.
There you go.
Exactly.
Keeping with the theme of the show.
Okay,
That is
so my house is a great example here.
Sure.
We're using this as the point of reference. At least I am, because I'm selfishly motivated. So you were talking about keeping the attic cool. I mean, literally was looking at, since this was the subject of the show, and because my wife had me go up in the attic and get some random object a couple days ago, and I about passed out while I was up there. What is the best bang for the buck? Is it a Tech Shield? Is it putting better insulation? Is it putting in an attic fan?
Insulation is another big key. It's another one of those things that we do go the extra mile on, where most builders are using an R30 insulation, which is the measure of the amount of insulation in your home, in your attic. We do an R38 level. And basically it's just putting a bigger blanket on your home to help keep that cool air into the home.
Is there a point in, I go in and I have just the standard bare roof, plywood, all that stuff showing, like I've seen every attic in my life. Is there a point in putting insulation on that? I've somewhat read about that. I've also then the Tech Shield stuff that you mentioned.
The biggest thing you can do on an older home like that wasn't built with Tech Shield is there's a spray-on version of Tech Shield that's available. that sprays on just like a paint. It is not quite as effective as the actual attic decking that is done during original construction of the home, but it can considerably reduce the amount of heat in your attic.
That's mind-blowing to me. Spraying a paint on underneath the roof actually helps keep out the heat.
Well, and you also have a spray on insulation you can a lot of times do up in the attic, especially in the older homes. We don't have that individual on, but that's something that's pretty interesting also. I've gone into homes that have actually done that and dramatically reduced the heat up in the attic based upon that, and consequently obviously reduced the amount of energy being consumed inside the house.
So if I'm the guy with the 91 house and 22-year-old house, and I'm sure
you should sell it and come buy a Coventry or Plantation home right now.
Perfect.
Nice.
I know a guy who can give you a good deal.
I happen to know a guy.
My wife has already hit me with that, so it's on the radar.
You have my card, right?
Yeah.
Now, Chris, I'm going to talk about spraying foam. I've heard mixed reviews on that. Is that something that you utilize in your homes?
It is not. There's several different systems for creating an energy efficient home. That is one approach to it, is the closed attic. One of the things that we focus on is the total system of a home, and that is how we achieve our energy efficiency levels. The spray foam is a different way of going about it. It's actually closing in your attic. We choose to insulate the home from the attic and then ventilate the attic with the use of air hawks, vented soffits.
What I've noticed, some people come from other states, and especially if someone comes in from California and tries to build here, they think they're going to build an airtight house. In Houston, if your house doesn't breathe, you're going to be breeding mold and all sorts of things.
Right.
Absolutely. The way that
I got a head shaking over here in the gym.
Yeah, the way that we build our homes is designed to control the amount of moisture in your home, not necessarily completely eliminate it.
Well, fenestration, that's how much air passes through the house itself. There are places and limits. It's just that we accept here a high fenestration, which is really combats energy efficiency. So it's a case where you can get a house very tight. What you have to do is introduce air other ways. Like in our house, we'll use a furnace that's 95% energy efficient. We won't pull air from the house or from the attic. We pull it from outside. Same way with air conditioning, because you have to introduce air.
Yeah, it's a cubic foot per minute CFM.
It's the climate you're trying to create. Like in our houses, the attic is air conditioned. It's 2 degrees warmer than down. Therefore, you don't have to worry about the ducting. So it's a whole different product as far as that goes.
Wow.
Yeah, you do have a situation where you can make a house too tight, but you can introduce air from other areas from outside and clean it up.
They didn't put that in their calculations when they built, because it was actually a California builder came in here. They're building stucco homes. They were sealing everything. Of course, what happened with EFIS and things like that. They weren't. Nothing was breathing.
Yeah. I was on a board at the Greater Houston Builders Association about EFIS. It's just, again, a way of misusing something.
It was
should be
installation
against
that was the
concrete.
problem. It was not the EFIS itself. It was how it was installed.
Well, and oftentimes what happens, and oftentimes what happens is other parts of the country have a way of building, but you have to build in the environment in which you live in.
Absolutely.
Houston is a very different environment. It's like a very unique region. We have a different climate. We have a high amount of precipitation and humidity, and then you have to build a home to be able to breathe. You cannot insulate it in, because that moisture, as you mentioned just now, will get in there. It breeds mold.
I know
allergies,
nothing,
etc.
I know nothing about EFIS, so
it's artificial stucco. But anyway, the
synthetic stucco.
When we get to Jim's segment, we're going to have a lot of questions. But he's absolutely right. It's about the air circulation. So anyway,
well, and that's one of the things that we do now that homes are being built so tight. And what he was getting at was the introduction of air into the air system from the exterior. That the home is so tight, you actually do have to bring in air through a fresh air intake, because the homes don't breathe as much as they used to, which is a good thing. You do actually have to suck air in to keep the home from getting stale inside. And this is one of the things that we talk a lot more in depth about in our new home buyer seminars that we do. We have one about every 2 or 3 months to help people through the buying process. And we happen to be having one next Saturday, June 22nd, conveniently enough. And you can find more information on that at coventryhomes.com or plantationhomes.com. But we go into a lot of detail.
When was the date again on that?
Next Saturday, June 22nd.
Okay, this month. Okay.
What area of town are you doing it in?
It'll be on the northwest part of town, Beltway and Clay Road, basically, at our design center. People will be given an opportunity to tour our design center. We'll have a realtor there to help them with the process of selling their home. And it's a great presentation that just is purely educational towards buying, walking people through the buying process.
What time is it? An all day deal?
Starts at 9 o'clock and goes till 12 o'clock.
It actually starts at 10 because that would conflict with our show.
Yeah.
We'll be playing your show for the first hour.
That's just like a warm up.
You can listen to the radio while you're at the open house.
That is correct. The first hour of the presentation will be based upon the Real Estate Rat Pack, by the way.
Absolutely.
There you go.
Well, we have another break here. We've got to run. It always happens so fast. We've got a fantastic show happening here. We've got a really great, interesting guest coming up next. You want to stick around, give us a shout at 800-808-5548.
By God, you got it right this time.
I got the number.
Got it right.
And we'll be right back after a message from our sponsors.
The room was completely black. I hugged her and she hugged back. Like the sailor said, quote, ain't that a hole in a boat?
Welcome back to the Real Estate Rat Pack Radio Show with Chris, Joe, and Rob. The crew is taking your calls, so dial in at 1-800-808-5548.
And we're live. Chris and I are both just staring at each other. You going to talk? I'm going to talk. You're going to talk. Well, we've got an awesome guest coming up. You know, we've had a really interesting show. I still have tons of questions. Still selfishly motivated. I've got I need the information here.
Yes.
I
think the word is, and Kim would like to have a new home, so it may be time.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Well, don't go down that road yet, Rob.
Kim, are you listening?
Yes, she is. She is. That's why.
We're working on it for you.
You get me in trouble every time. She's listening right now, I guarantee you. Well, we have an interesting guy up right now, and I've actually worked with Jim now a number of years with Improve My Credit USA. We've had a partnership together, and he builds a fantastic product, and it's something that's really cool, and I was really glad to be able to get him on the show this week. So, Jim, say hello to everybody and let us know who you are, where you come from.
Right. Well, I'm president of Solaris Homes, and we build an ultra-efficient house as far as that goes, and using more modern techniques. Our website is solarishomes.com, and it tells quite a bit about us there.
And let me tell you, the website is absolutely phenomenal. I've got it up, looking at it obviously right here. Got a lot of good information out there that you actually do. And we were talking about this during one of the breaks. We were going into things, sort of the transition, and we talk about building a energy efficient home and then building a super ultra efficiency home.
Right.
So, let us know a little bit about that. I mean, what is some of the things that Solaris does that differentiates yourself from everybody else?
Well, when you step back, you look at the envelope. That's where you start from. How tight is that? The fenestration we were talking about, how much air passes through. A normal house, like I'm sure most of the what we call energy efficient homes right now, they probably have about a 1,200 cubic feet per minute amount of movement through the house. And a house such as ours, which is an open cell foam we were talking about earlier, is about 480. So you're reducing that significantly. And in order to keep the heat out in the summer and keep some warmth in the winter, you've got to do that. We found that one of the byproducts is a lot of people mention that there's no dust in the house, which is
interesting.
A nice little feature as far as that goes. But also, when you're looking at the envelope, the attic is part of the whole space, and it's climatized. It runs about 2 degrees more temperature-wise than the downstairs.
That is almost like urban legend here in Houston. I mean, I've been in a lot of attics in my life in Texas, and even wrapping my mind around an attic that's 2 degrees warmer.
I'm not sure why you're up in those people's attics.
Yes.
We'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
Well, it makes it a great storage area, but also you don't have to worry so much about the ducts, because that is the weakest link in any HVAC system.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. We employ a 16-SEER system that is variable speed, programmable thermostats, and then you start looking at other things like we mentioned earlier, windows. Dual pane, argon-filled, low E windows that are vinyl, which they'll give you your best bang for the buck, really, over time, and they look good. And then also, since we in this country are blessed to have a lot of natural gas, the fact that years ago, the president, guest excluded, there was a promise here that once we built those nuclear reactors down in Bay City, energy was going to be free. Well, it didn't work out quite that way. But the idea is that gas stoves, tankless hot water heaters, now they have a condensing hot water heater, which uses 95% of the energy out of that natural gas when it's burnt, for example. So what you have is there's a 5-star energy rating system out there that the Department of Energy does. We've gotten some grants from them on some of the things we're doing. And the average energy efficient new home today is about an 85. And most of our houses run about 12 or 13. Of course, the lower the number, the better. There's a great resource here in the city where the permits are done on Washington Street. They moved into one building for commercial and residential permitting, but they have a wing. And what they deal with is basically all the energy devices and things out on the market that you can employ to save water, save electricity, a little bit nicer house. And of course, aptly named it's called the Resource Center, and it's a great resource. If you're thinking about doing something to your house, if you're thinking about building a new home, it's a great place to go and visit. Now, LEEDs, which you hear a lot about, certification, they have their Gulf area regional is right here. They sort of office out of that Resource Center. So there's a lot of things going on. Some cities in Houston are a little more active than others, like you mentioned, Austin. San Antonio is huge. We're a real proponent of renewable energy. All our houses have solar panels, for example. Because you back up, there's a couple of things about that we always like to talk about is that I don't care whose house it is, 7 times more energy falls on that roof every day than you need to run the house. And what are we doing about it? And this is where solar has really gotten to be. It's a distribution locally. We have one street, we have 20 homes that are all solar homes. They have about 5 kilowatts that they generate. In the wintertime, none of them have any electric bills. As a matter of fact, a high electric bill on that street, I just got the numbers in, and it was $1.85.
Oh, God.
For last month.
That was the high bill.
Yeah. The highest bill they've ever had in the last 3 years is $68. And somebody had a bill where it was 30 days, 100 degrees. So they had $68. That's been their high so far.
That is amazing.
One question I want to ask you really fast. One of the things we talk about, and I wanted to clear this up before we get a caller on right now, is that we have different energy efficiency programs. The 5-star energy efficiency program, you've got the LEED. What are some of the credible energy efficient programs that an individual, if they're out there, need to really look at and say, this builder is complying to this? And the reason why I ask that is because it seems like every day something new pops up.
Yeah,
right?
that's a great question. First thing you got to look for is what they call greenwash. That's where they put on there, hey, this is green, and it's a real stretch to see where it's green. Now, there is LEEDs, which is basically more than just energy. It has to deal with sustainability. Like a LEED certification deals with categories, like how did you plan this? How is it orientated to where it is? You have another category, what do you do with the waste, and how much are we putting in our landfills? Because the home building industry for years sent a lot of stuff to the landfill, and they're reducing those things, like that aspect of it. Another part of it is how much is recyclable, say glass-type countertops, composite countertops. Granite countertops get high ratings because you put one on and you never change it again, so that's pretty low in energy consumption over time. Things like renewability, sustainability, wood that comes from a forest that is being regenerated. You have bamboo floors. Now there's bamboo-made cabinetry because it's constant. You can keep raising that. Bamboo's like basically a weed.
Correct.
So it's a case where some people use it that way. But having some of my education come from California, we understand that. But the idea is that
another whole subject too. Whoa, yes, yes.
The concept, all these is a component. The thing to look at is just like what earlier guests were saying, is you have to look at it as a system. First, you save as much energy as you can. Then, if you make some energy on site, you have a real nice package. Like our 1,600 square foot home, it's a single story home. A normal home out in the suburbs would use about 2,000 kilowatts to run it. Our house, once we do the conserving elements like the foam and other things we were talking about, tankless hot water heaters, all this, we're using about 800.
Oh, my.
Okay, and then if we make 700, 800, 900 kilowatts on the roof, we're flirting with that zero. So that's how it's done.
Well, Chris, to kind of answer your question, one of the things that's out there that's becoming more and more popular every day is the HERS scores. And this is something that he touched on earlier. This is miles per gallon for your house. It's a way to weed through, as he said, the greenwashing that so many builders these days that are not truly green and are not truly energy efficient, they say they are. The best way to tell is ask them what their HERS score is. The home energy rating system is miles per gallon. It tells you how energy efficient that home, gives you a finite number of a ranking. And as he said, a typical Energy Star home is about an 85. The lower the score, the better. Environments for Living Platinum, our homes range in the 62 range. We don't create our own energy, as the Solaris homes do, trying to be cost-effective and cost-competitive in the production builder market like we are.
Correct.
It's a little harder to do those kinds of things, but the HERS score is the way to tell the difference. That's the the answer to the question.
That's the new ranking. That's really what people need to be looking at when they're out there looking at companies like yourselves.
It's pretty effective. If you go to the Resource Center, which I had mentioned earlier, they have a great explanation of what that is and what you're looking at as far as that goes.
Jim, I asked you, are you using recycled materials in your homes?
Some. You take like carpet nowadays is mostly made out of milk bottles, that type of thing. Wood floors have a certain amount to it. The padding that goes underneath them, those aspects. The drywall now is a lot of recycled product, especially the paper part of it. These kind of things.
Now, tell everybody what LEEDs. That's actually an acronym. What is that?
That is a composite certification. It's both. It's more a sustainable thing as well as it has components that are energy. Our homes are usually all fall in the silver to the gold rating. You can get certified. You get a couple of categories. You get a score that's acceptable, that's certified.
So you have some accountability to somebody to be able to get that certification.
Oh, exactly. Then it's silver, most of our houses, and then some just fall into gold. We're heavily weighted energy efficiency because that translates into dollars. There are mortgages now. The FHA and now Fannie Mae recognize that if you buy a house like a solar home, there are things like the EEM mortgage, which is energy efficient mortgage, where you can actually qualify for a bigger mortgage because the fact is you're not going to have that utility
Interesting.
bill. That's very interesting.
Well, we've got Richard on hold. Richard, we appreciate you being patient. When we come back from break, we're going to jump on and take your call, so just hang with us for a second, and we'll get to your question right away. Obviously, folks, we've got some awesome experts on the show here with tons of knowledge. Give us a shout, 800-808-5548. Wow. 800-808-5548. We'll be right back after a message from our sponsors.
Let my feet do things that they should do.
Welcome back to the Real Estate Rat Pack Radio Show with Chris, Joe, and Rob. The crew is taking your calls, so dial in at 1-800-808-5548.
And welcome back to the Real Estate Rat Pack Show. We have a phone guest who wants to call in, and
we have a phone guest.
Yeah, so we've had them sitting there. Richard, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Long-time listener. Very good info today, especially going into the summer. But you were talking about scores, and I'm actually looking to buy an energy-efficient house right now. And I'd like to improve, I think, my credit score. And so I was wondering, I started working with Improve My Credit about 30 days ago, and I just wanted to kind of know what to expect from that company and what they might be able to do for me here in the coming months. And I'll hang up and listen. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the call in, Richard. Yeah, that's a good question. This is an individual who's looking at buying an energy-efficient home. He's probably looking at buying for a builder. He's apparently engaged with Improve My Credit and wants to know, what does that expectation look like? What does the process, I guess, look like from a credit perspective to be able to buy one of these energy-efficient homes?
Well, you know what? It's a good question because a lot of people, and I mean a lot of people, have misconceptions about what credit repair is and what credit repair can do. I always hate giving the answer, but you have to because it is the way it works. You can never make a promise of an outcome in credit repair. People have the perception that, well, I pay...
Come on, Joe.
Yeah, I pay Improve My Credit USA to delete bad stuff off my credit and make my score up. That's why I hire them. But that's not the actual reason to hire a credit repair company. The way that the credit system works is that everything that is said about you on your credit report has to be 100% accurate, and it has to be 100% verifiable. The truth is what we're going for. We're not going for creating a false perception of what you are as a risk on your credit report. We went through crazy issues in the United States here recently because of that very thing, that people who shouldn't obtain loans were able to obtain loans. And that's not what I'm trying to create as a company. I don't want to go there again. What I'm going for is that the information that's being said about you on your credit report is 100% accurate, 100% verifiable, and that the lender, when they look at you, has an actual clear picture of who you are as a risk when they extend money to you. So what credit repair is about is doing that. We're just going to make sure that everything that's being said on your credit report is accurate, and that's really what you can expect when employing us.
Well, I have full expectations after you get taken care of, Richard, that you'll send them out to either MHI or Solaris.
Absolutely.
So there's a segue back to
Yes.
our subject today, which is about energy. And we were talking with Jim Waller when we went into the break, and I think we ended up having more questions about how this works. And you mentioned SEER ratings. They're rating all equipment now. Tell everybody what a SEER rating is.
A SEER rating is just something that they came up with that basically the baseline was done in Maryland, which it's relative to Houston. But what it does is just try to get to the energy efficiency of a particular type of products. Nowadays, I think you must be 13 or 14 SEER minimum. You find this systems now. What we have in the building industry, because it is rather conservative, we usually lag other places, like tankless hot water heaters. Very efficient, gives you continuous hot water for as long as you want.
I'm not tankless. I'm very thankful.
This is a great. I'm glad you mentioned that, because something that I keep going back to, because I'm in this position. But I'd imagine that if I'm in this position, that many people in Houston are in this position. I am looking at buying a new home in the next couple years, and to get to the more energy efficient, that type of thing. I have a 22-year-old house, but I want to position my house to be the best value and all that sort of thing. So consequently, if I'm putting my house on the market, I want to be able to have done things that really make it appealing and all that sort of thing.
I would call a good realtor and have him come out and consult with you.
Yes, I'm sure you would, Rob.
And I know you got two guys sitting right over there. They're sitting there going, what can we make you do to convince you earlier than a couple years?
Yeah. So if I'm looking at what is the best bang for the buck, if I'm looking at energy efficient, you mentioned the tankless water heater. That's something else that had hit my radar at one point.
Plus, it is a better product. Everybody in the family will like it because you can have the 5-minute or 5-hour shower. I mean, it doesn't matter.
Yes, I have a teenage daughter.
Exactly.
I don't think she's taken less than a doggone 45-minute shower in her life. So anyway, that's a pain point.
That's good. But the very simplest low-hanging fruit in any house is you look at the fact that changing the light bulbs from regular incandescent to CFLs. Example: a Solaris home has 33 light bulbs. One of the models that comes to mind. They're all CFL and some LED. So what you have is that it's equivalent. When you turn on all the lights, it's equivalent of about 4 100-watt incandescent bulbs. So that's the difference. I've read some articles on that. If everybody went to CFL, that it would save 20 to 22% of all the energy being consumed in this country today.
Yeah. Wow. I did it years ago, but I'm lazy about changing light bulbs. I just found out they lasted longer.
Well, but the other thing that it does as well is it reduces the heat load on the house. So if it reduces the heat load on the house, your air conditioner will work more efficiently. Your bill from Reliant will be lower.
So there's first step. We go to the energy efficient lighting. So that's a first easy, low-hanging fruit. Not a big dollar cost investment.
If you're changing any appliances like a gas dryer, once you've used it, they spoil you to where you would never go back using electric. A clothes dryer uses a lot of electricity.
Yeah,
it's a biggie.
Of course,
I've got a gas dryer.
Every piece of equipment's being rated nowadays. When you're talking about water heaters and things like that, they probably have efficiency ratings. And I noticed that, and probably neither one of you supply washers and dryers, but I've noticed that they have it where you
in one of our product lines.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Excellent. That they're using a very low water usage and they have you buy the special liquid soap or something like that you use in it because it uses very little of it. So in other equipment, talk about the other equipment, and either one of you can answer this question that you use in the house that is energy efficient.
Jim's right about the gas dryer. I think that's a big thing to consider. Electric dryer consumes a substantial amount of electricity. Yeah.
So there's a good one if you're looking at it
practically, anecdotally speaking. You know how you wash some clothes and then you do a load of, and the dryer takes longer than the washer. It's flip side. In a gas dryer, it's quicker than the washer can wash it, which is
So we have lighting now. We've got appliances. A gas dryer is a good option. Moving on from there, we talked about attic stuff. You guys had a lot of attic stuff going on as a touch point. Now, obviously, I'm in a position where I've got the old house, so I can't jump into a radically different system.
So you have all the usual suspects. You caulk up the windows a lot. You put more insulation in the attic. You check that the ducts aren't leaking. Because if you're leaking it, they're leaking and your attic is 150 degrees, well, then that's what some of that is coming in. And your coil, that's always a real funny thing. What I was getting to earlier, the fact is that tankless hot water heaters are not a new thing.
Right.
They started using them in France in 1918.
Good
So
Lord.
it just took us a little while to catch up. Okay? That's all they use
I
in
hate that
Europe.
the French are ahead of us on
I know,
anything.
it's terrible.
We don't trust them anyway.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah. So that's another thing that's big in about 90% or 80% of the stuff in Europe right now, and about 90% of all new construction in Asia is ductless air conditioning. And we sometimes call them mini splits, but they're really ductless.
I've seen
air
some of them.
conditioning.
They've been actually advertising them on television lately.
Exactly, especially if you're watching the Golf Channel.
Mitsubishi, I believe, is making one that.
Mitsubishi, the Fujitsu Carrier Corporation, they do them. There's about 3 or 4 other companies that have come into the marketplace. They run at about a 20 to 23 SEER. Every room you can have a different temperature.
And they basically work like a hotel air conditioner. There'll be a unit that kind of is in the wall. It's pretty large. I mean, it looks like that, but they're mounted up high as ones I've seen.
Well, yeah, they have a bunch of variations on that. What the nice part about it is I've used them in big custom homes when I do something with a real energy efficient house. Is the master bedroom then can run at 68, 70 degrees at night, while the rest of the house is at 70, 72.
Yeah, that would work for me because I like to sleep cool in the rest of the houses. If it's warm, 75, 78, I can
Exactly.
live with that.
Exactly. You can really have control because they use a remote, and then they also have, for certain times of the year, the ability to dehumidify.
So are you using that currently in your homes now?
In my 0 or minus numbers, like I have a condominium project that's on the drawing board about to launch at the end of the year, and it's a minus 12 HERS rating.
Wow.
And they use that type of.
We are coming up almost to the end of the show, and I would like to do this.
Again.
Let's do a lightning round really fast. Let all of our guests say one thing they want to leave today with our listeners hearing from. We'll start with Jim over there since you got a mic right in front of you.
Okay, the big picture is, if you like numbers, if you take 1 trillion times 1 trillion and then multiply it by 100, that's how many watts falls on the Earth every second of every day.
And it's our national debt.
Yeah, and it's 100, and it's 120,000 times more than all the economies need to run. So it's just a matter of what are we doing about it.
Wow. How about yourself, Chris?
The biggest thing to continue this conversation, come see us at our new homebuyer seminar next Saturday, June 22nd. Go to our website, coventryhomes.com or plantationhomes.com, and we can really help walk people through the process of buying a home and how they go through the confusing process of figuring out what builders are doing what, things like the HERS rating to help you narrow it down to what builder you should be building with. Obviously, it's Coventry and Plantation Homes, but we can help you with that process a little bit.
Education is education. How about yourself?
If you're a Reliant customer and you want one of Reliant's experts to talk to you about energy efficiency, you can call 1-866-E-EXPERT.
Well, man, we had it's amazing how fast it flies by. This has got to be another topic, another show topic.
Anytime we talk about energy efficiency, I tell you, it's a great subject matter. It's something that's very relevant, and it's something that's relevant because we spend money on buying a home, we spend money on maintaining that home, we spend money on the energy and everything associated with it, and it's also interesting to find out what new technologies and products and services are out there to allow us not only to buy a home in that area or the providers that we have, such as Reliant, but also what we can expect going forward. I think it's a great subject.
I learned a lot today. I don't know about you guys.
Great. I love the energy audit. I love some of the ideas for energy efficiency. Awesome stuff, guys. I'm serious. We have to do this again. It was a really
Arcadio,
interesting show.
Jim, and Chris, thank you so much for being on.
Absolutely. All you guys were great guests out there. For all those listening, we're going to make it against the end of the show, but we will see you next week.
And you've been listening to the Real Estate Rat Pack. The question is, who's Frank, who's Sammy, who's Dean, and who's the other guy?
Chris is Frank,
I'm
he's
Dean.
Dean, and I'm Sammy.
Yes, that right. Yeah.
So tune in to the really big show every Saturday at 9 a.m. right here on 100.7 The Word, KKHT.